Yeah. I mean, okay. 5b. We just finished off bringing two sources about a apostate that we don't accept the sacrifices, shchita. So one of the expositions was that it was from the word behema. So the word behema seemed to have a negative connotation. So that's what we're up to. I don't know, about 10 lines down, 5b. Is that really true that whenever it says the word behema, it means something negative? So the haksiv, we say Adam u behema toshi Hashem. A person and an animal, Hashem will save. So what does that mean? A person and an animal? It means we're comparing a person to an animal, but we're going to show you that the word animal can have a positive connotation. People that are they're very wise, they're intelligent, they're cunning, but they make themselves like an animal, meaning like they have no knowledge, a certain level of humility. So you see that the word behemoth, it doesn't imply always negative things, it can imply positive things too. So how can we interpret the word behemoth to exclude people that are we used it to exclude people that are, was it unlearned or apostate? It was. Yeah, people that were just unlearned. People that were domed to a behemoth. Rashi told us that the people that don't do the mitzvahs. So here behemoth is in a positive way. It's referring to people that are very knowledgeable, but yet are humble. And yet there we say that it's people being like an animal is a negative thing. So which one is it? So it says, it says, Hasam ksiv Adam u behema, hacha behema lechudei. It's the difference. When it says Adam u behema, a person and an animal, so then you can compare the person to the animal and you can have a positive exposition. But when in Vayikra, in the second pasuk of the book, it just says behema, so there it's going to have a negative connotation. Says the Gemara, well, is that really true? Every time it says a person and an animal, it's a positive exposition. It says in Yirmiyahu, it says Vizarati is based in Israel. I'm going to plant the Jewish people, Zera Adam, Vizera Behema, referring to different kinds of people. We're going to have people that are planted and people that are like animals that are planted. So that's referring to, Rashi explains, it's referring to people that don't learn. They don't learn the written Torah, not the oral Torah. They don't hang around rabbis to learn how to think properly. So on them, it's saying that we're going to, well, yeah, exactly. We're going to make them numerous, but it said behema, planting behema, it's people that are ignoramuses, basically. They don't know anything. So you see, theirs is Adam, and theirs is behema, and theirs referring to ignoramuses, not to these wonderful, super intelligent people who are just super humble. So says Gemara, no, it's very different. That's not an attack, because Hasam, Hachil Kikra, Zera Adam L'chud, Zera Behema L'chud. There's a break. It doesn't say Adamu Behema. It says there's two kinds of people. The Zera Adam, the seeds of a regular person, and the Zera, the seeds of a Behema, referring to ignoramuses, that they're going to be fruitful and multiply, that Hashem's going to make them numerous. But there, it's not the same thing as Adam u Behema. When man and animal are right next to each other, there we interpret it in a positive way. When there's two groups, man and a group animal, referring to man, then it will be in a negative way. So basically, the rule of thumb is Behema, when it's expounded, is negative, unless you have Adamu Behema. That's the one exception. They're together. Comparing a person to an animal, then when you're comparing them like that, then it's going to be it's viewed in a positive way. Okay. Simin Niklaf. So meaning four rabbis are going to have an opinion now about the shchita of Akuti, of this group of people that they're very meticulous in their shchita. Akuti is where we hold right now are converts. It's just they happen to not hold of this prohibition called lifnei iver, that there's a prohibition of giving prohibitions to your fellow Jew. You can't cause him to sin. Yes, yeah. So, for example, someone wants to know last Shabbos. There was somebody in shul who left something in the kitchen, Can you show them where it is? He knows the guy's going to drive home on Shabbos. So is that Lifnei Iver? Last week, someone asked. So Amar Rav Chanan, Amar Yaakov bar Idi, Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Says Rav Chanan in the name of Yaakov, the son of Idi, in the name of Yeshua ben Levi, in the name of Bar Kapara. Rabban Gamliel Ubeis Dino, Rabban Gamliel and his court, Nimnu al Shchita Skuti Vasru. They, Nimnu means they counted, meaning they took a counting of the rabbis and decreed that the slaughtering, the Shchita of a kuti, is going to be prohibited. Now, he didn't specify, is a Jew watching the Shchita, not watching the Shchita. He just said it's prohibited. That's a little bit of an ambiguous statement. So Amr le Rabbi Zeira le Rabbi Yaakov bar Idi. So so says Rabbi Zeira to Rabbi Yaakov bar Idi, who's telling over what he heard in the name of all these people in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. He said maybe lo shama Rebbe elabish ein yisrael al gaba. He said maybe they only prohibited it when there is no Jew watching them. So you're making a statement across the board that it's prohibited, but maybe it was only prohibited when a Jew's not watching the slaughtering. But if a Jew is watching the slaughtering, then it would be good. The response he got was, Amrle, Demi Haimer Rabbanon, Dami Haimer Rabbanon. This rabbi is similar to Kedloi Gemiri in Shishmaita. B'she'ein Yisrael Omen al Gabav. B'she'ein Yisrael Omen al Gabav. It sounds like, I think he's speaking to the person who just asked him the question. That or he's referring back to the one who made the decree, that what you think these people are not learned, that you think they would ever, they were talking about a situation when a Jew is not watching him. That's obvious. If I told you a kuti is a shchita is prohibited, obviously when a Jew's not watching him, that's for sure prohibited. I was coming to tell you it's always prohibited, even when a Jew is watching the slaughtering, it's prohibited. So it sounds like what you think we're like unlearned people. So that we would say something like this. I don't know how they explain it. How do they explain it? That he's talking to the person who asked him. It sounds like this person is similar to me. What? Sounds like he's talking to the questionnaire. He's saying you're similar to me, like yeah, that you're like someone who doesn't know how to learn. Yeah, your level of intelligence not so strong because obviously the novelty is even when a Jew's watching, when a Jew's not watching, so then there's nothing to talk about. So the question's like this: Rabbi Zeira, who stayed strong after the attack, guy got thick skin. So Rabbi Zeira wanted to know, Lememra, Bayi Kibla Mine, Olo Kibla Mine. So this Rabbi Zeira asked Rabbi Yaakov about this, and then he told them that of course it's across the board. So the question was, did Bayi Kibla Mine, Olo Kibla Mine? The question was, did Rabbi Zeira accept this or not? Did Rabbi Zeira accept this answer? Or did Rabbi Zeira hold that no, the only time it's prohibited is when no one's watching him. But if someone's watching him, it's permitted. So Rabbi Zeira, who just got smashed, did he accept this rebuttal or did he not accept this rebuttal? We're going to bring like a little bit of a longish story to prove, not so long, to prove did Rabbi Zeira accept this and therefore a kuti slaughtering is prohibited across the board, or he didn't accept it and it's only a case where a Jew is not watching him. But if a Jew is watching him, then you're good to go. But let's see a story that's going to prove to us what Rabbi Zeira held. Tashma Amar Nachman bar Yitzchak Amar Ravasi Anira Isi. So Rav Nachman, son of Yitzchak, says in the name of Ravasi, I saw Es Rabbi Yochanan Sha'achal Meshchitas Kuti. Often stories are always the best way because you see big people actually acted upon the law. So you can learn from there. So I saw Rabbi Yochanan ate from the slaughtering of a kuti, of a kuti. And even after Ravasi Achal, I even saw Ravasi eat from the shechita of a kuti. Now, Rabbi Zeira, same person as before, the one who asked the question, who got attacked. But Tahi bar Rabbi Zeira was contemplating, how do you understand this? Did these rabbis eat from it because they never heard of the teaching of Rabban Gamliel, who decreed against this? But if they would have heard it, they would have abstained also? Or they heard about it and they disagreed with it? Which one is it? So, news didn't travel so fast back then, you know. So like nowadays, V'tayiba, every time someone sneezes, it's online, right? So, but no internet, right? That's true. There was definitely no internet back then. So, V'tayiba Rabbi Zeira So Rabbi Zeira is wondering, lo shmiya lahu. They didn't hear about this. Diave shmiya lahu have a mekabli law. If they would have heard of it, for sure they would have accepted it and never eaten it. Oh, dilma shmiya lahu below kiblu. Or they did hear about it, okay, but they're also big people, and they didn't accept, and that's why they ate it. So Rabbi Zeira said, Hadar Pasha L'Nafsheh. He answered his own question. It often happens that way, right? So Mistabra, it's more logical, Dishmiya lahu, Vilo Kiblua. It's more logical that they heard about it and they disagreed with it. Why? And this will have to wait till Sunday, maybe Tuesday, Wednesday. Probably not today. I think Daf Zayin or Daf Zayin would be that he says like this: what's going to happen? What's your other side of the coin? They never heard about it. And then what does that mean? It means that holy people did the wrong thing. They didn't hear about it, but it turns out really it's prohibited. So he says, he's going to say in a second, even an animal of tzaddikim, Hashem doesn't bring wrongdoings to that animal. For sure, a tzaddik himself, Hashem wouldn't bring wrongdoings to the tzaddik himself. So how could it be that really it was prohibited and they ended up eating it? That means that they did something wrong. But he holds that that's not plausible. So he says, if you want to say that they never heard of it, and if they would have heard of it, they would have accepted it, having mekabli law. Well, one second. How is it possible that that this would have happened, that this would have succeeded, that the rabbis would have eaten something prohibited? And then he invokes something which is going to be a famous story coming up later. So, hashta behemten shel tzadikim and Kadosh Baruch Hu maybe tekal al yadon. The animal of tzadikim, we'll see that. I think it's the donkey of Rav Pinchas ben Yair. We'll see Hashem does not bring wrongdoings upon it. So ayadon tzadikim atzon lo kol shekain, on tzadikim themselves, is that possible? Hashem wouldn't bring it upon them. There's I believe the story goes, one of the great rabbis was flying on an airplane, and there's a halacha that if you have meat, that's not if you leave meat alone, so then and it's not covered or with a certain stamp on it, so then you're not supposed to eat it because you're worried that maybe it got switched for something. So one time someone was on a plane, I guess it was before all the professional kosher food, all perfectly quadruple wrapped nowadays, but he the story goes, I believe I'm butchering the story, but the story goes that he basically got up from his seat and he went to the bathroom. And then he realized, I left my meat untouched. So he came back, he refused to eat it. So it turns out that somebody swapped the meat with him, the person next to him. So he ended up not eating the non-kosher meat that was swapped for his kosher meat. Okay. Either way, the next page. Lo kiblu minei. Now, if you're going to tell me, lo kiblu minei, if you want to say that Rabbi Zeira, that they did not accept it. So one second. When Rabbi Zeira was attacked by Rabbi Yaakov, that he said, well, you're an unlearned person, you think we make a decree if a Jew wasn't watching it? That's obvious. It must be where a Jew is watching it and it's always prohibited. So so then if it's true that these rabbis didn't accept this ruling, so lishnile, Rabbi Zeira should have had a rebuttal. What do you mean? It's very logical. If he has rabbis that ate the meat of a kuti, obviously that was a case where a Jew was watching it. So if you really held of that, when you got attacked by Rabbi Yaakov, you should have responded. It's a big difference when a Jew's watching, when a Jew's not watching it. Why didn't he respond that way? Elalav shmamina, kibla mine shmamina. Rabbi Zeira himself, obviously from his lack of answering back to Rabbi Yaakov, he accepted that halakha. So he himself accepted it. That's why he didn't respond. Even though the other two rabbis in the story, Rabbi Zeira held, of course, they heard of it and rejected it, but he himself didn't hold of that. He held that the decree was made across the board, and that's why when he got smashed, he accepted it. He understood that the halacha was made, the decree was made across the board that any slaughtering of a kuti is not going to be accepted, even when a Jew is watching the slaughtering. Okay, now the question is, what is that? Yeah, no. So the question is, why did they make a decree? You could think to yourself, they're kutim. Let's assume that we're considering them as Jews. They just they're lax in certain areas, but they're meticulous in other areas. So what could be wrong? So the reason why they decreed was for the following story. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar sent Rav Meir to bring wine from a house of a Kutian. And what happened? The elder found them. So some say the elder always means Eliyahu Navi. Tosas here has a problem with that based off of Gemara and Shabbos, and it could just mean a regular elder. An elder found him, and he said, he quoted a verse in Mishlei, "V'samta sakin b'lecha," that you're putting a knife to your throat, im bal nefesh ata, which meaning if instead of meaning put a knife to your throat, meaning Rashi says be strong, don't give in to the Yetzer and to your Yetzer Hara, your evil inclination, and take wine from the Kutians. Rather, go and separate yourself. Meaning, don't continue along your way. Don't take that wine from the Kutis. Okay, so Halach Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar is an interesting story. The Sipur Dvarim the Rav Meir. So he goes back to the person who sent him Rav Meir and told him what happened. So now the Gazer lane. Oh, Rav Meir made a decree. No wine from the Kutis. Sorry. So says the Gemara, 1 second. Why do you make this decree? My time. Amar Rav Nachman Yitzchak, because Dimus Yona Matzu Lahen Berosh Har Grizim. They found an image of a Yona. This one's a dove, right? A dove, good. This one's a dove. They found the image of a dove on the top of Har Grizim, right? Har Grizim from the two mountains where they had the blessings and the curses, and then the Devarim. Har Grizim, and what's that? They found the image of a dove. Shahayu Ovdinosa. There apparently was a minority group of Kutians that
they're still there.
They're still there. Har Grizim. Oh, you're right. The Samaritans.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's also yeshiva there, no? Har Grizim. No, maybe I'm confusing. That's Har Bracha. No. Yeah. So they would serve the dove. Now hold on. Usually, when you have a minority of people, you have something called follow the majority. So if every time you go to a Kuti's house and take their wine, and you want to know now, is the wine that was worshipped for idols or not, poured for idols? So hold on, 90% of them upstanding citizens, minus a few problems. But overall, they're good. So the fact that 10% worship some dove on Har Grizim means that we can't drink their wine? The answer is yeah. Why? Because there's a big debate in general. Are you worried for the minority or not? Rabbi Meir, who made this decree, Rabbi Meir Latame, he is worried. The source is that when you have a in Yevamos, Rashi brings that you have a minor, a katan or a katana, and now they fall into a situation of yibum. So someone dies. So let's say you have let's say 8-9-year-old whose older brother who's married who dies, and now the lady falls to yibum through the katan to the 8-9-year-old, 7-year-old, whatever it is. So what do you do yibum wise, chalitza wise? So Rabbi Meir is worried that they might have, whether you're a boy or a girl, you might have issues when you're older. Meaning, a minority of boys are not able to reproduce. They they might be natural, and what's called natural castration. You don't castrate them, but they may be naturally unable to have. And a katana might be what we call an islandess, certain physical features that would not allow them to reproduce, which means that they'd be excluded from the parsha of Yibum, that they can't do Yibum. So even though that's not majority of people, Rabbi Meir was worried for the minority. He was chayish l'miyuta. He was worried for them, and therefore he did not allow a katan or a katana to do Yibum. So just like Rav Meir in general is worried for the minority, even though the majority of Kutians are not hanging out on Har Grizim serving doves, but there's a minority of them, and therefore he's worried for that minority, and therefore he made a decree, you can't bring wine from them because we're worried about idol worship. And therefore you can't rely on their slaughtering either. So, So now, says the Gemara, he goes according to his reasoning that he's worried for the minority. He decreed the majority of Kutins for the small percentage of them. So therefore the decree applied not only for a kuti from Har Grizim, but any kuti was included in this decree. Then the Gemara says, "From Gamliel Beis Dino, Nami Kirav Meir Svirlu," and Rabban Gamliel and his court also also went and they made the same decree. Now we'll see in a second why you need two decrees. Sorry, Reb Meir made it on wine, and Rabbi Gamliel made it on shchita. Two different degrees. So Reb Meir made it on wine, and Rabbi Gamliel held of the same reasoning and decreed it on shchita. Yeah. Okay. So now back to that verse that was quoted. The elder told him, "Don't, go back." What does the literal translation of the verse mean? It's a verse from Mishlei. So Pasha the Krub and Maiksiv, the actual verse itself from Mishlei, it's the second verse in the 23rd chapter. So it's actually talking about a student and a teacher. The Maiksiv, the Talmud Hayosh ben Rabbi, a student in front of his Rebbe. The Tani Rabbi Chia taught us that the first verse there in the 23rd chapter, it says, "He say shev lilchom," when you're sitting at war. This is referring to a student and a teacher in terms of a war of Torah. He say shev lilchom as Moshel. Moshel is the ruler, referring to the Rebbe. Bein taven as asher lefanecha, whether you understand what's in front of you. And then the next verse, our verse, v'samta sachen b'lacha, put a knife at your throat in bal nefesh ata, if you have, I think they translate, if you have an appetite. So what does this mean? So like this. Im yodea Talmud, if the student knows that the Rebbe can give him a good answer, so ask him a question. It won't be embarrassing. Im yodea Talmud brabash yodea lahachzer lo tam bin. So that's good. Ask him a question. V'im lav taven es asher lefanacha. But if you think that he's not going to give you a good reason for your question, so then samta sakin b'lecha in bal nefesh ata parush shemenu. Then put a knife to your throat, meaning stop yourself. Stop yourself from asking the question and resist. Sometimes you really want to ask a question, but it's not the right time, or it's too complicated, or the person might not know. So in this case, bal nefesh ata, Rashi means you have a desire to ask and get to the truth. However, if you think he's not going to accept, so don't ask, presumably because it's going to be embarrassing for him. That's right. That was always what they said about Rav Chaim Kanievsky. Rav Chaim Kanievsky has 1.5 million miracles start to happen with him. People went him for all kinds of questions. But the rule of thumb was, if you go, then you have to be ready to accept whatever he tells you. He told people you should grow payas. On this part, don't put it behind your ear. Don't wear a watch. He had his things. But if you're not ready to accept, then don't go, because you have to be ready. Now, Rabbi Yitzchak ben Yosef shad Rabbi Yabo l'asui cham Beit Kutai. Rabbi Yitzchak ben Yosef sent Rabbi Yabo to go bring wine from a Beit Kutai. Same story. Eshkehu Saba. I guess they hired an old man to stand there to tell people this. Eshkehu Saba. That was like a business. Yeah, if you need a business, you can work at that booth. So Eshkehu Saba Amarle Leis Kan Shomrei Torah. There's no people that keep Torah here. Okay, so Halach Rabbi Yitzchak was Dvarim Lefnei Rabbi Yabo. Rabbi Yitzchak, the messenger, went back to Rabbi Yabo and told him over the story. So Halach Rabbi Yabo was Dvarim Lefnei Rabbi Ami, Rabbi Asi. Rabbi Yabo, then the one who sent him, went to Rabbi Ami and Rabbi Asi, who lived much later than Rabbi Meir. These are already later Tanaim, I believe. And then what happened? V'lo zazu misham ad shasum ovdei kochavim gemurim. They didn't move from there until they made these kutim like total idol worshippers, like total non-Jews. Lemai, for what? If it's for slaughtering and for wine, drinking their wine, well, they already made that decree generations earlier. So what happened was like this. Says the Gemara, you're right. But what happened? When Rabbi Meir made the decree, the people didn't accept it. So, Rabbi Ami, later on, Rabbi Asi, they made a decree, and they accepted it. So that's what you have these two degrees. It wasn't that, because usually there's a rule, you can't annul a decree of a previous court unless you're bigger than them. The chachmu v'minyan, in wisdom and in number. So Rashi points out, it's not that they were bigger than them, but just the original decree was never fully accepted. Why? So Rashi explains, because they were so used to the kutim. They were Jews. They always hung out with them. They always were with them. They always drank and ate with them. So it was very hard to resist. But as time went on, in Rabbi Ami, they were able to resist from them, which it's reminiscent of a Gemara that says that don't make a decree unless the people are able to keep it, because then you're not going to gain anything. What do you gain? So obviously, Rabbi Meir held that they were going to be able to keep it, but it turns out not that way. Okay. What does it mean? Ovdei kochavim gemur. They're like full-fledged idol worshippers. What does that mean? So now there's in general, when we make an eruv, right? So we know of the string that goes around, right? And the different mountains that like here, about 10-mile radius eruv. However, if you go out on the bookshelf, you'll see on top of the bookshelf a box of matzah, right? A box of matzah is we have to combine everyone who lives here into one unit. Once they're one unit, they can use the eruv. But the eruv is just you need both. You have to have people combined together as one. So we have food that if we ever need food, we all can eat from that. That unites us as one. So like we said, food always unites. Yeah. So what happened here was, let's say you have a mavui. A mavui is an alleyway that goes from a private domain to a public domain. So it's an area where they needed an eruv. It's called eruv mavos. It's rabbinically they need an eruv. The question is, how do you nullify your domain to the general public? So it's going to be a difference if you're a Jew versus you're a non-Jew. If you're a Jew, you can do it verbally. If you're a non-Jew, they have to rent it from you. So the question is, what were the kutim? So we said, what does it mean that they're full-fledged non-Jews? It meant that when it came to nullifying their area, to make everyone united as one in that area, they were not able to verbally nullify their area. They had to do like the non-Jews. They had to rent it out. That's the more we have to see in Eruvin coming up, I don't know, in December of 2027. Okay, so my to be mevatel rishus and to accept the rishus. Rishus here means domain. Ukiditanya yisrol mumar. So a Jew who went off in apostate, mishamer shabaso b'shuk. So once again, invoking the principle of a Jew keeping Shabbos in public is a certain stature, even if he doesn't keep it in private. But in public, it's a different world. Yisrael Mumar, who keeps Shabbos in the shuk. And the shuk is the marketplace, in the public. So you can accept his domain and take his domain, no problem. If he doesn't keep Shabbos in the public marketplace, so then, like you see him there working on Shabbos, selling the food or whatever it is, then you cannot he cannot nullify his domain like everybody else. Because they said Yisrael knows in Rishus u'mevatel Rishus u'ba'oved kochavim ad sheyiskor. But a non-Jew has to be only until you rent it out. You have to rent his domain, and then it's part of the groups. Ketzad, how do you do this? Amarlo Rishusi kliyalach. A Jew will tell you, my domain, my house, my apartment, my land, whatever it is acquired to you. Rishusi, my domain, is muvutelas, is nullified to you. So kana ve'eno tzarich litzkos. You can that works. You can that works. You acquire his domain. That and you don't need to do any kind of acquisition. That's enough in this case to have us acquire his domain for this purpose of uniting the mavui, this area, and therefore you can carry in and out on Shabbos. Okay. Rabbi Zeir and Rabbi Asi iklu lepundaka the Yoi. They went to the inn of Yoi. Aisu lekamayhu beitzim hamitzumakos. They were brought eggs, hamitzumakos beyain, cooked in wine. Now hold on, whose wine is this? Rabbi Zeira lo achol, Rabbi Asi achol. Oh, two Jews, two opinions. Nothing new, right? Rabbi Zeira didn't eat. Rabbi Asi did eat. Rabbi Zeira, Rabbi Asi. I don't get it. You're not worried? Below chayishmar letaroves demai. We know that demai is the demai. Demai is they made a decree. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai made a decree that when you buy food from an unlearned person, you have to take off tithes because we're worried that he did not tithe his food, and therefore it's called demai, and therefore you have to take off tithes again, meiser again. So he asked them, "This is wine, okay, but it was an egg cooked in wine, so it's a mixture. You're not buying wine from him. You're buying an egg that was mixed with the wine." So he said, "You're not worried letaroves demai? You're not worried for a mixture of demai?" Amarle, I didn't realize. Lava daite. I didn't realize. So now Rabbi Zeira is consistent. The one who says that tzaddikim can't, bad things are not going to happen to them. They're not going to make errors in halakha decisions. So Amar Rabbi Zeira, same as before. Efsher gazru al taroves demai mistayim milsa derabasi b'meichel isura. How could it be? Did they really make a decree on a mixture of demai that you can't eat that either, and Rabbi Asi would go and eat something prohibited? What do you mean? The animals of tzaddikim don't, Hashem doesn't bring, downfalls upon them. Tzaddikim themselves, for sure not. So, Nafik Rabbi Zera, he went out, meaning he went to go search in halacha, where is is there such a decree? Dak Vashkach, he went and he found, Ditanan, it says in, should be the Tanya, not a Mishnah, it's a Brisa. The Brisa says, Halokeach yain l'seis hamurius. Okay, here's a bunch of different foods, which I don't know if they sell in Trader Joe's these days. So you have to help me how they translate it. Yeah, you buy wine to put it l'toch hamurius. So murius is some kind of fish brine, okay, l'toch alontis is some kind of drink, wine and water. Karshinin, vetch. What's vetch? I don't know what vetch is. Round vetch, whatever vetch is, okay? Yeah, I don't have time to AI it. Lasos, mehen, techinin, to make some kind of ground up food. Adashim are lentils that we know. Lasos, mehen, resisin, to make some kind of, what is that? Some ground up lentils, yeah. So all of these cases are chayev mishum demai. Ve'ein sarich lomar mishum vadai. Ve'ein atzma. 1 second. All these things are chayev mishum demai. You have to take off your own tithes. Ve'ein sarich lomar. But there's no need to say mishum vadai. Ve'ein atzma mutarim b'nei shein tarovis. Ve'lo gazu al tarovis demai. Yes, these things, before you do it, you have to take off tithes. Once it's mixed together, there's no need. If you buy a mixture from the unlearned person, you buy the vetch mixture and the lentil mixture and the fish brine that has some wine in it, that they did not make a decree to take off tithes from that. So it says, oh, look, I found that a mixture of demai was never decreed upon. And therefore, it supports what he holds, that Rav Asi, who ate this mixture, did nothing wrong, because they never made a decree about these on a mixture of demai. So now we're going to ask now about Tanya hanosin l'shchento isa. So you give to your neighbor dough, lafa, she's going to bake for you, or a kedera levasha, or a pot to cook. You gave her some food to cook you up something very nice. You want her to cook for you. So now this lady is the wife of an unlearned person. So we assume that she's also unlearned. So you gave her a dough, and you gave her spices, different spices to make you some yummy food. So now what happens? Eino choshesh l'seor v'tavlin shaba. You don't need to be worried about the dough and the spices that are there. Lo mishum shvius v'lo mishum meiser. Not because of shvius, the 7th year, prohibited to eat the food from there. Not because not because she worked that food during shvius, v'lo mishum meiser, and not because of meiser. However, v'im amar la asali mishlichi choshesh l'seor v'tavlin sheba mishum shvius. But if she tells this lady, the lady, the unlearned lady tells Rebbetzin and Sarah, by the way, I use my stuff, I use my dough and my spices, then you do have to worry. So you see, you have to worry about food that was made with, you have to worry about meiser, food that was made from an unlearned person, even when it's cooked together. If she gives you back the challah now, or gives you back a food made with these spices, you can't eat it. So we see that you do make a decree. You are worried about even mixtures of untithed foods. Says the Gemara, no, it's very different. 2 answers. Shiny Hassam, first of all, they came in the Kamar law, Asali Mishlichi, Kiman de Arav Biadayim Dami. When she said, make from your own ingredients, use your own ingredients to make, so that's like saying, take your own food, take your own food and go mix it together. That is much more severe, because that's the same as when if you had wine, you have to take tithes off the wine. It's just if it was sold as a mixture, that far they didn't go. When you tell her use your own ingredients, so that's like saying basically take your own untithed food and make it for me. That's going to be a problem. That's like buying from her food before it was mixed together, and that food you have to untie. It's like the same thing. So that's one answer. Yeah, Rafram says shiny soor v'tavlin d'latayim l'tayim lo batel. That soor, the dough, maybe here better, the sourdough, the one that leavens. I'm not that Jensen. You just sour is the leavening agent. Yeah, the leavening agent and tavlin are spices. These are things that are made for taste. Dilatayim of it. Spices are for taste. Sourdough is for leavening. But the point is that they have extra importance to them, and therefore they don't get nullified. So in general, we know that there's a rule of nullification. We know 60 times, things like that. But there's a number of exceptions to the rule. Things like this that are very important, or they're made for taste, or so they're considered like the primary. Right, the food without the spices is not going to be good. So that's like a primary part of the food, and obviously the dough without what's going to leaven it is also not going to be good. So those things are unique. So even though you have it now as a mixture, but the spices and the leavening agent are so primary in this food that they never became nullified. So therefore, you view it as if it's the original spice and the original dough, and therefore the leavening agent, and therefore you do have to take off tithes from there. So it's an exception to the rule. But generally, a mixture of food, you don't have to be worried about it not being tithed. They never made a decree on the mixture, only on the food itself. Now, how do we get so late? Now we're asking, there's another worry here. The unlearned person, you're not worried that they might switch it? They might switch it for something? Maybe she switched it. You gave her your ingredients. Maybe she switched it for her ingredients. Why aren't you worried about that? It sounds like if you gave her your ingredients, you're good to go. Maybe she swapped it. So says the Gemara, is that really true that you're not worried about switching? Okay. This is a new section. 4 minutes will happen. Maybe we'll stop. At least I over-prepared though. I got to 7A. So I had high hopes. Probably my 7 minutes of being late would have helped. Okay.